And welcome inside Delaware Live Sports, powered by 302 Sports, a special podcast edition episode this week after a big week in terms of DIAA football here in the state of Delaware. Nick Alessandrini, of course, joined by almost the whole crew. Jason Winchell, Mike Lang, Nick Halliday, Pat Garyantes, and Glenn Frazer. We are missing Benny Mitchell. We'll look to get him back in the podcast game here soon. But guys, a big week for football here in the state of Delaware. A football realignment. We now have the results and some big changes coming to the first state. But first off, guys, how are you doing this evening?
Fine. That's great.
Doing good.
Yeah, doing good, Nick. Excited to talk a little football here, man. I'm pumped to hear what everybody has to say, man. There's definitely some interesting topics on here. Different things to talk about.
Nice to actually talk about football outside of the season, too, huh? Mix it up a little. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I believe the last time we all got together was right before the playoffs of our DIAA football playoffs this year, and we had a great playoff run, and glad we were able to complete that football season. Now we're midway or almost wrapping up, getting into the playoffs of the winter sports now with basketball and everything, wrestling going on, and now we have this news as well, something else that we're able to talk about. And guys, there were two proposed plans for this, and Jason, I'll kind of let you kick this off. We talked a little bit about last week, but there was an AD's plan and there was a superintendent's plan. How did that kind of play out, and what did they decide to go with?
Yeah, and there wasn't too much of a difference behind each plan, other than the athletic director's plan had 12 teams in the higher division, which is Division 3. Had 21 teams in Division 2 and 12 in Division 3. And then it changed. The superintendent's plan had only 11 teams in the top division, and then 14 teams in the bottom division and 21 in Division 2. So there was a little tie-up there. But the big key was Howard. Howard would have been in Division 3, which I think they, based off their record the last few years, they could have handled Division 3 and been in that tougher division. But I think they wanted Division 2, and it ended up going that way. But a couple teams switched districts, like St. Mark's went from District 2 to District 1. Red Lion went from District 2 to District 3. Howard fell in District 2. So it was like 7 or 8 schools swapped places from the AD's plan to the super's plan.
And we'll dive into some of these results in a little while and go through the districts and the divisions for everything here shortly. And Glenn, just kind of lay the foundation. We talked a little bit off air before we went on. You had some interesting facts that you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, well, this is the biggest shakeup in 45 years in football in the state of Delaware. There was no playoff system in place until 1971. And then for 4 years until 1975, there were only 4 teams in the entire state that made the tournament. There was no classification breakdown. And then in 1975, they did classify the larger schools in Division 1, the smaller schools in Division 2. And it's been that way ever since. My biggest issue, well, not really an issue, but to me the biggest change in all of this is what will happen to the traditional conferences of the Henlopen and the Blue Hen. Are they now gone? Will there be no Henlopen North and South champ, no Blue Hen Flight A, Flight B champ?
Right.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
Not a football.
So what changes now do you guys think will come from that? Just how different is it going to be?
It's just something to get used to, it's things change. These conferences weren't really serving anybody. I mean, look at as the ADs pointed out, look at the number of running clock games. It's ridiculous. How many games a week streamed or covered for print or for websites that just were blowouts by halftime? This is for competitive balance, and I know there's some people that are married to these conferences, but this had to happen, and I don't want it to happen in every sport. I think fine, but the competitive balance was just completely out of whack. I'm fine with not having conferences. I didn't go to one of those schools, so I don't have the emotional tie-in that maybe some of those guys do, but I'm fine with a conference champion.
Yeah, Mike, I believe it was, 54% of games were running clock in the last year. So, I think that, and they felt that it was also a safety issue. I mean, you had schools with 20 kids playing schools with 60 or 70 kids, and, by the end of the game, it just, they felt that there were safety issues in place. So they were trying to get a more competitive matchups for these teams and safety for the kids.
And now, guys, before we dive deeper into this, I guess we'll go through, what do you guys think we go through each classification, and then do you guys want to start with 3A and District 1 and 2 and then go from there?
Yeah, that's fine. Or let's start at the top.
All right, well, that's where we will begin things. So Class 3A, classification, 11 teams, District 1, Appoquinimink, Hodson, Middletown, Salesianum, St. George's, and William Penn.
I feel sorry for William Penn.
And we'll dive in District 2, Cape Henlopen, Caesar Rodney, Dover, Smyrna, and Sussex Central. So, guys, that's 3A classification. That's the top Districts 1 and 2. What stands out to you guys initially there?
I really like that Division 3A. You have enough schools, just enough, in District 1 and 2 so they can all play each other, and they'll all have a 10-game schedule.
Yeah, I know that mentioned as a potential solution to the scheduling. I like the option of being able to schedule somebody different. I'd love to see Howard play Salesianum. Howard Hodson's always been a good game. I know DiNardo said this week that he's fine not playing any out-of-state games, but they've had some really good ones against, they used to play Baltimore Poly way back when, but even more recently, they play Father Judge at Brother Oblate School, and they've played some other Malvern Prep and some other schools. I'd like to see Middletown go out of state and play once in a while and maybe challenge themselves, or Smyrna. There's some teams in Maryland or Pennsylvania that these schools could play and really produce some compelling football. But if they want to take that way out, I could live with that.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up all great points. The competitive balance, aspect of it. This top classification, you're going to see some blue bloods going at each other, which is always great to see. And Mike, I think that's a good point about Middletown. They've been locked into 8 games in that Blue Hen Conference, for years now. And when you got to, play what is typically an unfair, so to speak, game against like a Delcastle or someone of that nature, to be able to mix it up, it's important for those guys. And I think it'll, kind of give them, some challenges come playoff time. Some different rivalries will come out of this, which will be interesting for sure. You mentioned the Howard and Hodson rivalry there. That's I guess we'll get to that in a second about like if there would be any changes that would be made. But no, that's the unfortunate side of it. It's got some positive and negatives for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you guys too. With some of these teams getting to play some of the out-of-state opponents that are, not far, getting them to. Like you said, Sally's always had a decent schedule, but getting Middletown to play some of those things, maybe they can play Fowler, Judge, or Salem right across, the river here in New Jersey, and bring in talent that we get to see from other states, and then get to see how they line up. And we know how good those football players there are down at Middletown, and it's not, they don't put so many kids in college for no reason. But it'd be nice to see those teams, Hodson, kind of break up their schedule, and see those teams from out of state. They are going to be beating up at each other a lot. I get that, but like you said, it's the competition level that I like. That you're not going to have to worry about those running clocks, and hopefully that's what you eliminate.
And guys,
I think
go ahead, Jason. I was going to say before we move on.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. But look at some of those, and they did not approve the crossover. But I think you will see some of those teams play crossover games. Like you might see Sally's play Sussex Central, Middletown play Smyrna. I think that you'll see up to the 3 crossover games, so that'll give you 8 games right there, and that leaves 2 for either your out-of-state games or your traditional games, like a Hudson, Howard, or other Division III teams playing Sussex Central, Sussex Tech. Probably want to still play each other. So, I mean, I think that's what I think they'll play their district games, then I think they'll play 3 crossover games, and then I think that will leave a couple games for them to schedule and get the matchups they want.
So you get the option to keep some of those traditional games, like you just mentioned, going down to 2A, but it also gives you the option to play everybody that's in Division 3A, and that brings in the question of how is the committee going to handle the point system? How many points are you going to get for playing a 3A, a 2A, or a 1A? Yeah, and I know. Last week they on the DIAA board meeting, they've made suggestions for the football committee, which the football committee doesn't have to follow, but one of them was a more fair point systems where you don't get penalized for playing down the division. It would be like so many points for a win, so many points for playing a team with a 500 record or more, and so many points for playing a team with a 700 record or more, and kind of go that way. But again, that's something that the football committee will have to discuss and decide what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I don't even know how you can have this without having crossovers. I mean, you look at a lot of these schools like Division I, Division 1A, Division II, how they come up and play some of the bigger schools, and that's how you can grow some of these programs and maybe have them move up. That's how you can get more kids coming into your school, knowing that they're going to play better competition. And, you might be able to raise a program from that. So I don't know how you're just going to say, you're going to stay here, you're going to stay here, and you're going to stay here. I don't know how that lineup would work.
Mike, any last thoughts here on 3A?
On the 3A, I'm looking forward to some closer games. We've had good ones. It's not like they're all blowouts, but, and we have to keep picking on certain schools, but Del Castle hasn't won a conference game since 2014, and God bless them. They didn't want to give up their games last year. This past season, when we went through the scheduling mess, they wanted to stay in Flight A, but this just had to happen.
So again, that is 3A, your District 1 and District 2, and now we'll take a look at 2A, our classification with 3 districts there. We'll go District 1, District 2, then District 3. So we'll start here with District 1, which contains Concord, Conrad, Del Castle, DMA, McCain, Newark, and St. Mark's. Do you guys want to go through all 3 districts and then talk about it, or would you like to go district by district?
We can do district by...
Yeah, district by district.
All right, so right there is your District 1, Concord, Conrad, Del Castle, DMA, McCain, Newark, and St. Mark's. Pat, you know a little bit about that Del Castle program, some of those teams. What stands out to you there in District 1 here, and now you're in 2A as opposed to 3A?
Right. It's tough. I mean, it's just tough. I mean, teams like Newark, Del Castle, McCain even, they've had some struggles through the last few years. So, they're going to have to claw their way here in a 2A classification, this District 1. I think Concord, all in all, there's some good games, I think, in here. Newark, St. Mark's, I know, is a big-time rivalry from the past, so that'll still be there. DMA's been an up-and-coming program over the last, 6-7 years. So, and they got Conrad, who's they're down the street rivals. So, there are some good matchups in there for sure. It'll be interesting to see. Like, this is the classification here where I think, some of those running clock situations could still be apparent. And this isn't an easy job by any means. So I understand that the difficulty here that the superintendents and the DIAA and everybody has. So, but all in all, it'll be interesting to see how this district plays out. There's some opportunity here for sure.
And guys, there are 21 teams across these 3 districts, so 7 teams per district. Again, that's District 1. Anything else stand out to you guys? Jason, anything in District 1 stands out to you?
Yeah, I think, the fact that St. Mark's moved from, I think, a tougher district in District 2 that we'll talk about later to District 1, with they're in there with DMA and Concord, are probably the top 3 in that district as far as thing. But I'm with Pat. I think this is the district that, we might see more of those running clock situations with some of those teams. But again, I think you will still see some competitive games in that district.
Glenn, anything in District 1?
No, not really. That looks like a pretty decent, at least geographically, bracket to me. I like the fact that Newark and St. Mark's are in there together, and that'll renew an old rivalry. Other than that, no, not really. No other comments on that district.
Yeah, Nick and Mike, anything before we move on to District 2 of our 2A classification?
I like conference chance. Maybe St. Mark's. They were so close last year. I think they're in good shape.
Yeah, nothing really jumps out at me at this district. I can see where there is a little bit of a distance in some of the competitiveness you're going to have in some of these, but you never know. I mean, you get a couple of good games out of it, and maybe like I said, playing a tougher team will make the kids try harder, work harder, and see if you. I mean, I'm sure you're going to get some good games out of it, though. I don't think it's a bad district at all, honestly.
Now we'll take a look at District 2. Again, 21 teams in this 2A classification. 7 in each one. Our 7 teams in District 2. We'll begin with AI DuPont, Archmere, Brandywine, Howard, Mount Pleasant, Tower Hill, and Wilmington Friends. So that is your District 2 in 2A. Mike, let's start with you here. Anything stand out to you about District 2?
Yeah, I think what stands out for everybody is one of these things is not like the other. And that other team should have been in District 3. They're not. Howard is obviously going to be the favorite in all of that division, or that Class 2, divisions, classes, division brackets, whatever they call them. Archmere has had a good program the last few years. So I think they'll be all right. And there was, I don't have them all written down in front of me, but that should be a decent one. I think, the other thing that jumps out really is Tower Hill and Friends. I know the independents were trying to stay together and they can still play each other. But the discrepancy in the sizes of those schools, Howard's over 800 students and Tower Hill is, I think, under 300. Friends is, I think, the 4th smallest school in the state. High school. It's going to be interesting to see. Jason and I were talking about, I think Friends and Tower they'll play Howard because they're on the schedule. I don't think they're going to be real happy about it.
Yeah, I was going to say Bob Tattersall's already on record that he's not too happy about it. And I think he was quoted as saying he preferred the formula that was set up originally, not the one that got changed. But I think when it all comes down to it, it's a 2-year period. Let's see what happens at the end of 2 years, and if Howard is completely dominating this division, then they're probably going to move up to 3A anyhow. That's the only thing that stands out to me. There are some decent ball clubs with some real good recent success in Wilmington Friends and Archmere, but again, can they compete with Howard as the way things stand right now? Probably not.
Nick, what I found was interesting, and somebody was online talking about Howard and not being able to substitute equally with these division or Class 3A teams. Looking at roster sizes from last year, Howard had basically the same roster size as St. George's They were only a few kids short of what Hodgson had on there. They had 8 more players than Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant's played Division I in the past few years. William Penn was the same size roster. So, and DMA always has around that same size. I don't think that's quite as big a factor as some people are making out. And then you look at a school like Friends last year that had, 24, 25 kids on the team, or AI, who I think finished the season with 19 players on the roster. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Howard. Obviously, they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room here.
Yeah, and as they pointed out on the DIAA meeting last week when they were talking about it, is Howard has more boys than Friends and Tower Hill have people in the school. So, I think that was the worry from the independent conference, and saying, why move Howard down into that district? Why didn't put them in District 1 or District 3, and opposite of Friends and Tower Hill? But again, like Glenn said, it's a 2-year period, and then you can make adjustments after these 2 years. Let's see how it plays out. But yeah, I think Howard and Archmere are probably the class of the District 2. But I wouldn't rule out Mount or A. And if AI can get some kids in there, they've had some decent football programs in the past. They just ran into trouble getting kids this year, and maybe that's because what was going on with what was going on in the world.
Yeah. Now, I mean,
a two-year cycle, and they just easily could have put Howard in 3 for that 2-year cycle, and then they could have had a promotion and relegation like the English football.
Great idea,
but that's not what we have. So.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, man. That's why I'm sure this decision was hard for them. I mean, you look at the roster there from Howard. They've been dominant the last few years. They dominated a team that's in Class 3A this past year in Appoquinimink, and they have underclassmen that weren't seniors last year that are still going to come back. And I don't know if that was taken into consideration or not for these next 2 years or so, because I get it. It's cyclical, right? I mean, you got kids, filtering through different schools at all times. Some teams go up, some teams go down. It all plays itself out. But, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but, I mean, this team was just like heads and shoulders better than everybody else that's in their district right here. And they have a lot of key returning players. It's going to be a challenge for the rest of the teams in District 2, for the next few years, to say the least.
Let me play the other side of the card, right? We're sitting here and we're saying, okay, well, they can move up after 2 years. Well, why? If it were me and I was leading a program and I wanted my kids to feel like they were the champs of the state and stuff like that, then if it's only 2 years, why wouldn't they play up? Why wouldn't you want
I agree with you.
It's better competition. And then if you're getting your butt whooped, you move down in 2 years.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly with you, Nick.
I'm just looking at it on the other side. I don't know what's right and wrong for them. I know what they did, whatever, but if it's you and it's me and you want to recruit, let's say, and this is a big thing that we'll talk about at the end of this. If you want to be able to get better students in there, better football players, let's say, do you want them coming in saying we're only in Division 2, or do you want them coming in saying we're going to play Division 3 and we're going to be the small guy who beats the Giants? That's just the way that I would think about it and see, how would I want it to be. So, but all the statistics that Mike said, you can't deny those. So, I mean, it is what it is. That's exactly right when Mike said all those stats. How is that going to be fair? I don't know.
Hey, let me ask you guys this. Do you think in any way, and obviously, some of you guys were listening to these meetings, that, location played a factor into this? Because say you did bump Howard up, you're even more uneven up top in 3A, right? It would make it, 7-5? And the fact that whole entire district...
No. Middletown was in District 2 and Howard was in District 1, so it was 6-6. It was an even balance, and you had 12 teams and that they were going to have 6 playoff spots.
Yeah. Sorry, Jay. I think what happened was at that Sunset Committee, and they got some of the state legislators started coming to Howard's defense about about their enrollment, and kids are going to get hurt or whatever. And what about the vote tax? And they had a state rep and a state senator both speaking up about it. And let's look at the vote last week. The superintendents all voted for it. All the athletic directors voted against it. So I think we know where the influence was. Right. The superintendents won out.
Anybody with closing thoughts on District 2? And I'm sure we'll wrap it all up with a conclusion here at the end. I'm sure that will come back up at some point as we progress here. So that's, again, 21 teams in 2A. We've been through District 1. We've been through District 2. So now it's time to get into our last district of our 2A classification, District 3. And it goes like this: Caravel, Delmar, Lake Forest, Milford, Red Lion, Sussex Tech, and Woodbridge. So here again, District 3 is Caravel, Delmar, Lake Forest, Milford, Red Lion, Sussex Tech, and Woodbridge. Glenn, going to start with you here. District 3, thoughts?
First thing I think about is some long bus rides in this year.
Travel time.
Caravel and Red Lion having to go all the way down to Delmar and vice versa. And even down to Woodbridge and Sussex Tech. Yeah, there's a lot of travel involved in this district. I'm glad they kept Delmar and Woodbridge together because that's one of the biggest downstate rivalries in Division II and has been for several years. But yeah, you're throwing Caravel in there. This is a very, very, I think, competitive district. Caravel traditionally has been very good in football. We know about Delmar and Woodbridge. Milford's been successful. Sussex Tech has had a few down years, but now them being in 2A instead of 3A is going to help them. Lake Forest has had their moments. Red Lion might be the one team that's really going to have to step it up in this district, I think. Other than that, this is a really balanced, competitive district. It's just going to be the travel involved.
Nick Halliday, we'll go to you next. District 3, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Glenn. I mean, I love some of these matchups. I mean, I look at it and every team that's going to face off with each other in here, and some of these games, keeping Woodbridge and Delmar together, and did a good job of that. Caravel's been playing those teams anyway, and I agree, Glenn. It's the travel time that I look at with some of these games, but I think it's a very fair and competitive division, and probably the best one out of the districts in Class 2.
Pat, we'll go to you next. Your thoughts on District 3? Is that maybe one of your top divisions also?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with both Glenn and Nick in the sense that, there does seem to be some even distribution here. And I mean, to be honest with you, even D2 has some good matchups too. I mean, Howard's just kind of the outlier there. But, yeah, I mean, the travel's that's another thing that stood out to me. I mean, Caravel and Red Lion making the travel down, and then downstate teams making the travel up. We'll see how that, kind of shakes itself out. But you can start to see like some of the unevenness where, the schools, right? There's a lot of schools in Newcastle County. I mean, inevitably you're going to have some districts that have some mismatch. This one seems to have some pretty deep ones in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like you said, some of the natural rivalries still being there. Delmar and Woodbridge, Milford being in the mix there as well. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Red Lion, they were kind of senior laden this past year, so we'll see if they can kind of step up to that challenge as well. But no, I mean, I think this is a pretty good district in terms of competitiveness for sure.
And we'll go to Jason and wrap it up with Mike. Jay, District 3?
Yeah, it's a very competitive district. One fact about Red Lion is they asked to move in that district because they said they wouldn't mind the travel. I think their AD just wants to, go and play, and the AD is also the coach, Ken Anderson. He's a good guy, and And I think, they were talking about having some, if they put Red Line in another district, then you start having uneven districts. And I think Red Line and Caryville both said, hey, we don't mind the travel. We've done it in years past, put us in that division. And, he was senior-oriented last year. He's going to struggle in that division. But, kudos to him. He said, you know what, I don't care where I go, just put me in a district, and, I don't mind traveling in a small state. I can travel 2 hours to play a game if I get a chance to play Woodbridge and Delmar and Sussex Tech and those type of schools. And so, but I think from top to bottom, this is one of the toughest districts in Division II.
And Mike, take us home here on District 3.
Yeah, well, I think what everybody said, there's some great games in there. I don't think the travel is as big a deal. I mean, I used to live in upstate in western New York, and some of those schools would hop on a bus and drive 3 hours to go play a game and then turn around and drive back. It's Delaware. Come on, you can be anywhere in an hour and a half, 2 hours. I look at the basketball season this year. Every time I turn around, Delmarva Christian's boys or girls team is driving up from Georgetown to play a game, and they're just happy to be playing. I think the travel's overblown, and most of those schools are going to have 3 trips to Caryville. They don't even have to deal with the 95 construction. So, and I don't think it's that big a deal for the teams to drive up here. And like you guys said, Caryville's been playing Delmar and Woodbridge. They've been going down there every other year forever. So it's not a huge deal. But I think the travel's overblown. I'm looking forward to some good football.
Yeah.
So there you have it for Classification 2A, 21 teams and 3 districts. Again, we'll cover it a little bit as we conclude in a little while. Now we head to our Classification 1A, 14 teams and 2 districts. We'll begin here with District 1, Christiana, Charter, Dickinson, Glasgow, St. Andrews, St. E's, and Tatnall. So again, these 7 teams in District 1 of 1A are Christiana, Charter, Dickinson, Glasgow, St. Andrews, St. Elizabeth's, and Tatnall. So to get us started here on District 1 and 1A, Jason, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about that District 1?
Oh, yeah, I think that's going to be some competitive games, and what it does is, by having this third division, it gives teams like Charter, Christiana, St. Elizabeth, teams that have struggled in years past. It puts them all on an even playing field, and it gives them something to strive for, because there'll be a championship in this division. So it gives everyone a fair shot, and this is one of the divisions, the districts I like, because they all struggled the last couple of years with win total. I think if you add up all their win totals, you might not get to one of those Division III programs combined. Yeah. So I just think this is one of those districts, like a team like Charter, who was playing in the Diamond State. They struggled against those Archmares and Red Lions and Conrads and DMAs, and now they get paired in a district where they have a chance to compete in these games.
And Mike, now go to you here for District 1. Christiana, Charter, Dickinson, Glasgow, St. Andrews, St. E's, and Tatnall. What do you think?
Well, I think St. Andrews is kind of a wild card. They've had some good players and some good teams. They're not playing any sports this year. Obviously, as a boarding school, they're bringing kids in from all over the country. But I like, and then Glasgow's had some good teams. Like Glenn mentioned, these things change every couple of years. It depends on a lot of things. If you hire the right coach, that makes a big difference. But overall, it may not be Middletown against Smyrna, but there's going to be some really competitive games, and I think that was the goal of going through all this, is to compete.
And now, Pat, I'm going to ask you, you're a former St. E's Viking, had some success, obviously, there when you were there. What do you think about St. E's in this District 1?
Yeah. Well, before I get to that, I think that this is where, the biggest, I think, positive step for competitive Delaware football is being made. Because a lot of these schools, and I have firsthand experience at coaching at a school like Delcastle, where there's athletes that are roaming the facility that probably could help a team out, but they know they're going to get their teeth knocked in every weekend, so they don't want to play the sport. So you're going to get these teams that historically maybe are really struggling, and a good year for them is a 3-win season, have a chance to be competitive and have a winning record, which I think is going to grow interest within the sports on these schools. And I think that's all great. In fact, I probably would move a few more schools from that 2A class down to here for the same exact reason. But in regard to St. E's, I mean, they're historically, if you go back and look at it, they have a few good years where they got a couple good classes in a row, and then they struggle for a while. They're a small school. You got to pay to go to school there, and it all, it's cyclical in that way. And Coach Dooley, I think we all can kind of respect what he's done as a head coach, especially during his time at William Penn. He's going to get, again, an opportunity to sell this program again as, you can compete, you can win a state championship now, and you can develop. Like, the focus as a coach now, instead of how do I protect my kids going against the Middletown, going against the Salesianum week in and week out, you can now focus on, the skills of the game and actually develop them as football players regardless of where they're at compared to some of the other kids who've been playing their whole entire lives. I think it's a really great opportunity to boost the overall skill level of the state with this 1A classification. It starts in District 1. And District 2. So I think it's all good. I think it's nothing but positive can come out of it.
Nick, we'll go with you and then Glenn to wrap up District 1 in our 1A.
Yeah, I love what Pat said, and he's right, that it's going to give these programs and the kids there, like he said, some of those kids might be walking the halls, or you get an instance that they have a lot of athletes who don't want to play and get hurt that might play another sport. We saw what happened when Mount Pleasant got the whole basketball team to come out and play football, and next thing you know, they're in the states, in the playoffs playing against some of the big teams. But what I'm getting at there is, like Pat said, is you might get more kids to come out and play because they're going to be playing competition that they are. They might not be football players per se, but they might be athletes, and they're walking the halls. They're not, playing because they don't want to go out and get hurt for what they're doing. But if Pat's right, you're going to see more people start to play on these teams because of the competition level. And I still think there's some schools in here that can grow. There's another topic that I would probably talk about with it, but like Pat said, a school like St. Eve, they are small and it is cyclical, and I just think that they're going to grow, and I don't think we're going to see St. Eve's in this district very long, if you ask me.
And Glenn, any final thoughts on District 1 of our 1A, our first 7 teams in 1A?
I kind of echo the comments of everybody else that went before me. I think this division here was the whole purpose of the realignment. There are programs in here that just haven't, for whatever reason, had a whole lot of success on the gridiron. And some of these programs historically were very good, like Christiana. Back in the 70s, they were competing for Blue Hen Conference titles and even played in championship games. But over the years, with enrollment changes and everything else, and then the lack of interest at the schools, the programs in these schools, be they public or private, have really struggled. I really like what the committee did here. I think this is a very balanced group, and hopefully St. Andrews will have an opportunity here, whether they take it or not, to schedule more than 7 games in a season or 8 like they have in the past.
Yeah, some great points on District 1 and 1A. And again, just halfway through our 1A classification, we'll head into District 2, and then obviously we'll have a final general talk about the entire realignment. But to get into District 2, your final 7 teams of the realignment here in 1A: Early College, First State Military Academy, Indian River, Laurel, Odessa, Polytech, and Seaford. So again, First State Military Academy, Early College, Indian River, Laurel, Odessa, Polytech, and Seaford. So District 2, that now we've revealed every team in the realignment, but our final district of 1A. Nick, let's start with you here. What do you think? We've gone through it all. Here's our final district. Thoughts on District 2 of our 1A classification?
I think honestly the 1A is probably the best competitive distance, perfect every realignment you would want. When I look at these teams and these games and travel and all that. But I agree. I think this is the reason that the realignment was thought of and should have happened. I don't know if they did it right. We'll find out. But again, we all have a 2-year window to try to fix things. But all of these teams, just like Glenn just said, for some reason or another, haven't had a ton of success. Some of them are new. You got Odessa in there, who's just only freshman. Early College, I have never seen her. They usually play in the Maryland League. First State Military, just some of the schools that are either newer or just got the program and stuff like that, and then other teams that just haven't had success for whatever other reason there is. But I like this district. I mean, I still think there's going to be some good games coming out of it, and I hope that. My hope is that some of these teams fight to move up into Class 2 or Class 3.
Yeah. Anyone else with thoughts on our last district here, District 2?
Yeah, I just want to
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm with Nick, and I think eventually Odessa will move up as they start getting more and more kids. I mean, this was the first year that they're open, and I don't even know if they're eligible next year or not. And Early College, that was one of the reasons Henlopen, they were supposed to get a team in that Henlopen conference. That's why Milford moved up a couple of years ago, and they still haven't been able to field a team, so I don't know if they're going to have a team or not. But, yeah, I mean, I think this, like Nick said, I think this is just why we did the realignment, and again, I think it gives these teams a chance to grow and be competitive, and like Pat said, get more kids to come out for these teams.
And
Go Ducks.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said go Ducks.
So Duck, yeah. No, I think it's great, to have some of these newer programs start out down here and develop. I mean, it's kind of the same thing that I mentioned with District 1. I kind of spilled out all my thoughts when it came to that, but it's just kind of the district, the Class 1A South Division. It's there's going to be some even, and again, we'll see what happens in terms of getting some kids to come out for the sport, but that's where the focus shifts, man. It shifts from having to protect your kids to, okay, we can actually develop them and still be competitive come the weekend. Because at the end of the day, it seems like, this generation of kids is results. Everything's based off the results. It's not so much the grind and the process. They want the results. So now if you can give them some competition every weekend, maybe they'll want to grind a little bit more and develop. I think it's great.
And the only thing that stands out to me here is, and the guys have kind of alluded to it, you've got 3 programs that are relatively new in Early College at DSU, First State Military, and Odessa, and then 4 very established programs in the Henlopen Conference. It's obvious that Odessa, with enrollment numbers, is going to move up probably the next cycle. But somebody like Laurel could very well dominate this district for the next few years. They're not that far from being in the next level up in 2A. And again, 2 years goes by, who knows what kind of movement we'll see. But, this is interesting because, like I said, there's 3 relatively new programs thrown into that district. I like District 1 to make up a little bit better than this one. But you had to put them somewhere.
Yep, that's true. It's true.
So, guys, we've gotten through all our districts, our classifications. Now we can kind of get into a general discussion here as we're got some time left here this week. we'll just go around and start likes and dislikes of the realignment, and for your dislike or maybe something you might change or would have changed. We can go around. Jason, I'll start with you. Of the entire alignment here, likes and dislikes. First, your thoughts overall.
Well, one of the things is Division III. I would love to see in 12 teams, because now you got 11 teams and you're going to have 6, state tournament playoff spots. So more than half the teams are going to be in the state tournament. I would like to see a little bit more competitive, get that 12 or 14 teams, try and get an even number of teams, so each district is playing the same number of games against each other. But that's not what happened. Also, I do like the District 1. I really do like the fact that we're now giving these teams a chance. You have winning seasons. I mean, that's school pride right there, And, some of those teams didn't have that chance before. Now, all of a sudden, you have a chance. And, with it being 3 state championships, now that, those Division I teams have a chance for a state championship. It's something that, as an athlete, that you always want to play. You always want to play to be the best. And I think that's what this does. And it gives teams and schools a chance, and it gives, players a chance. And, I just think it's going to be a lot more competitive.
Absolutely. Final thoughts, Mike, likes and dislikes of the realignment.
So I like that with the goal, which is to get more competitive football. I'm glad we didn't go to any more than 3. With Delaware, it's like 46 football playing high schools. You don't want to break it down too much. I know people point to Rhode Island, which has 5 divisions, but I think they have over 100 high schools that play football. So I don't want to see it get too watered down where we're giving out participation trophies, but I'm just looking forward to some more competitive football. We were in Division II football this year, and Arsenal is a really, really good team this year, and then they just didn't have a chance that day, so if the games are closer, I'm all for that, and it looks like we're going to get some better games.
And Glenn, now to you, overall thoughts, your likes, your dislikes, and would there be anything you would want to change?
Well, definitely the likes of what happened with Division 1A, basically taking those schools out of the old Division 2 and giving them a separate division of their own. I love what happened there. And to me, that was the whole purpose, I think, of the committee and this realignment, was to designate another division to put those programs into so that they could have more success and get more student athletes interested in playing the game again. Division 2A is just, I don't know. I think there's a few too many teams in there. I would have also liked to have seen rounded out in Division 3, since there's going to be almost half the teams making the playoffs. But, you got to start somewhere. If they were going to make a realignment program, a system to take over what's been in place for the last 45 years, this isn't a bad place to start. And we'll see what happens over the next 2 years and what kind of movement after that.
So, Nick, we'll go to you and then round things off with Pat here. Nick, you've had a chance to look at it now for a little while, and you talked a little bit about 2A and some teams there. Likes and dislikes, and would you change anything?
The likes is I agree. I like the competitiveness breaking up into three classes. Like you said, giving those other teams at the bottom a chance, playing a more competitive schedule. You don't get everything right on the first shot all the time, so it is a really good place to start. I agree with everybody, too, that I really think that District 1 should have been 12 teams. And I think it would be better, like Jason said, especially with 6 playoff spots. That means half the people are making it. But it is what it is, and it's a great place to start. One of the things that I and this could be another show for us, another topic, but one of the things that I look at for this is the kids switching schools and going to different programs, because you might have a kid that is a 3A talent at a 1 or a 2 school, and will he stay at that school to play in that division, or do you want to get better kids on your 3A team? Yeah, I start to look at this and think of how many people are going to be switching schools for competition levels to play better, and then when you have to maintain playing in 3A or in 2, you got to get the talent in there. So how do the schools do that? And I can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of years with that.
And Pat, we've seen a lot of these 3A teams in action, both of us doing some of those games. You've coached at Del Castle in 2A. You've been to St. Elizabeth's in 1A. You got a lot of experience here. What did you think about this overall football realignment, and would you change anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great concept, as everyone's been saying, and as we've highlighted throughout the conversation, to just, try and grow the sport, give some teams that haven't had historically competitive seasons a chance to compete. I mean, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? It's a very low percentage of these kids are going to go play, college football. I mean, there's been more over the last 5, 6, 7 years maybe than in the past, but still it's a low percentage of the overall total. So to give them a positive experience playing sports is what it's all about. In terms of what I would change, I agree with everybody. Moving Howard up to 3A, even that out. Maybe you draw back on the playoff games, right? If you only got 12 teams, maybe you only do a 14 playoff. I don't know, maybe. I think 2A should be split up, right? So Howard should go up. I think maybe a few more teams could be put down in that 1A classification, at least for this first go-around. Because, as Glenn said, I think that 2A class is kind of saturated a little bit with 21 teams. Not sure, if they're going to go 18 playoff or whatever the case is. But,
that's their plan.
Yeah. You're kind of set up to where you could set up a playoff situation depending on the districts, right? I mean, but yeah, I mean, I would maybe change a few of the schools, drop them a level or raise them a level. But overall, I think it's gonna create some really good football come Fridays and Saturdays this fall.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And again, a big day in the state of Delaware for high school football. Again, a big realignment to get things pretty much all refreshed here. There again, 3 classifications. 3A is your top division. 2A is your middle division, and 1A, obviously, your bottom division. Again, some people may still be getting confused with Division 1 and Division 2. Again, that is no more. So you got to get used to 3A, 2A, and 1A. And again, your top teams will be in that 3A district. Guys, we're going to wrap up here. Anyone with any closing thoughts before we sign off? Got a nice hour-long football realignment episode, and let's anybody else with any closing thoughts today?
Yeah, I think Nick Halliday's point about the transfer portal is definitely an intriguing conversation to have in the future, for sure.
I definitely agree. That would be something to, we've already seen it this year with a bunch of waivers being approved that we haven't seen in the past. So it will definitely be an interesting topic to talk about.
Well, then, there we have it. Again, thanks for everyone tuning in here. Delaware Live Sports, powered by 302 Sports, an episode on the DIAA football realignments. Again, there will be 3A, 2A, and 1A. 3A, 11 teams, 2A, 21 teams, and 1A, 14 teams. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in. For Nick Alessandrini, Jason Winchell, Mike Lang, Glenn Frazer, Pat Garyantes, and Nick Halliday, we will see you next week, and we'll get together for a basketball episode and maybe a little wrestling episode with Benny Mitchell. We'll see, but we'll see you next time.